Greetings, technology enthusiasts. I am Chandrahas and I am delighted to be here with you representing CyberBrainer. Do you not believe that the technology sector is advancing at an unprecedented rate, making this an opportune moment to acquire the skills that will facilitate your progress? With CyberBrainer, we are empowering you to take control of your own future. At CyberBrainer, we do not merely impart your interests. We assert that information is power, yet it is the application of knowledge that distinguishes you. Our courses are meant to equip you with essential skills, whether you are pursuing data science, understanding artificial intelligence, or delving into cybersecurity. Let us commence the session and seize the future today. Thank you.
First, what we'll do is we'll see whether learning the digital security group is there or not. What will be a report and what will be a task here? Because it says report, but it seems like a task. View security group is a task, it's not a report. It said report when you searched. There is no security group here. We'll try to create the security group. Learning administrators a kind of user basic security group that will be created because user basic critical will be assigned to the employees. Employees in the sense learning administrators. Let's say I'm defined as a learning administrator. That user basic critical called learning administrator should be assigned to my user profile. What we need to select user base, the security group we need to select. User basic security group. Learning administrator. At least by security group, we'll give it as security administrator because security administrator will have in Workday complete security administrator will be Workday. Security will be controlled by security administrator. Whichever user-based security group or role-based security group that you create, you'll be assigning security administrator as a kind of security group, which is a kind of administrator security group. When you say users base a security group, that means that you're manually putting in the users to this security group. But when it is role-based, I think that it is dynamic in nature. Yes, role basic critical assigned at our level or position level, but role-based user basic critical will be assigned to user level manually. If you wanted to based on your supervisor, or it will be automatically get inherited. But if you wanted to manually break that inheritance, you can naturally break that and have it assigned to manually. But all the downstream members also will get the same inheritance applied. Let's say you're the manager. Now for you kind of one manager role is defined. We'll create a role basic critical manager, and manager will be having some specific role based permissions or not. The system access and approval things, and all basically managers will be accessing based on your position. You got this one and your team members below, they're kind of associate level or developer level or my lead level resource. Based on the position, this role based security will restrict. It will not inherit. But if you're hiring any kind of manager and you became a senior manager and you're hiring a manager, your manager's security access will get inherited to the manager person. You know who will be hired under you. Because you know the role is managers and your role is manager, and your security roles will get inherited to that particular manager, but will not get inherited to any developer or associate any kind of downgrade resources. Now I've created Learning Administrator user-based security group. Now this can be assigned to any user part. We have not assigned any learning permissions here. We've just created a Learning Administrator but have not assigned any learning related permissions. In order to give complete security access to Learning Administrator to access any security element related to learning, what we'll do is we'll assign domains to that particular user. Basically, go to Security Group. Maintain domain permissions for Security Group. Here you'll be getting what access to modify, what access to view or not. Put and get is something related. Integration will not, since this user will not be managing any integrations, will not be giving those access or modify access, view access. Whatever related to learning, that other will be giving, because Learning Administrator is a kind of super user. Will be having complete control or learning application. Just enter domain named learning. You'll be getting all the domains related to learning. Learning access. We'll just see whether all these are learning. All these are learning administered, delivered learning related domains. What we'll do is we'll complete modify access to all these learning domains. Also view access to all these domains. You click down Control and click down the space bar, is it? We have given complete. All the learning domains are assigned to this learning administrator and click on. Now there is one activity that you need to perform in order to take your security settings or security setup become effective. What you need to do is you need to activate the security that your security changes will get effective. You got all the domains which are assigned to Learning Administrator, all the domains which we got selected or populated here. Now this is activated. Now we can choose any of the user and assign this Learning Administrator security. Just took one random name. We can pick any of the user for whom we need to grant learning administrator access. John, Paul and Todd. To John, Paul and Todd. You know we have assigned learning administrator security group and they should be having control in performing any action related to learning. Like that, when you're implementing, you'll be having a list of administrators from business. Probably you need to do the same activity of what we have done. You need to create one user-based security group and assign all the relevant domains to the appropriate person. You know who you wanted to make learning administrator. That's how you typically manage your security. Now I shown one user base, but depends upon your organization requirement to whom you're implementing or to the customer for whom you're working. They may be having different security requirements. They may want to. Sometimes they wanted to reduce some kind of permissions to learning administrator. They wanted to have one more kind of instructor, wanted to give specific permissions to instructor rather than giving complete security access to learning administrator. Few responsibilities that instructor has to perform. You need to create one user-based security group for instructor and assign in some instructor-related domains to that instructor and assign if there are any people who are identified as instructors for those people you'll be assigning this instructor user-based security group who will be having different permissions to manage course instructions and administer any kind of instructor-related activities, and all that instructor will be having permissions rather than giving complete control. Learning administrator. You can also have such kind of security setups based on. That's how we typically manage security groups creation in Workday. And now we know what it is. We'll pick few of core domains in learning and provide access to the learning administrator. What we have created now. At administrative campaigns, we've seen red domain, which usually manages all the campaign related activities and all. Basically, any module implementation first needs to be configured with domains and security. If you are implementing the learning module, if you are implementation partner, or if you are any kind of associated with the implementations, what do you have to do? First, you need to figure out what are the domains related to learnings are available in the tenant and to whom we need to assign those domains. That is one area that you need to focus before you go for configurations. And what are the security groups that needs to be created with all the relevant permissions that you need to prepare a kind of list. And once you complete that kind of configuration, security and domains, then you can go for extra configuration related to tenant. That is what we are doing now. Initially, we have discussed some basics and we have identified a few domains, and those domains will be assigning to learning administrator. And similarly, you'll be getting a kind of security group creation requirements from your customer organization or partner. We know they'll be giving a kind of, we wanted to have a learning administrator. We wanted to have a, instructor. We wanted to have affiliation manager as a kind of a role-based security group. And all this kind of 5 to 6 kind of security groups. They'll be having as per our organization requirements And we need to set up those security groups with the relevant permissions, as how we know we have done now. And once you have those security groups, and what are all the domains that needs to be assigned, we'll be seeing now. Now we have created Learning Administrator, and the Learning Administrator should have. Obviously, they've given complete access to Learning Administrator. That shouldn't be a kind of case, since we have selected all the domains and should have complete access. Now, in order to go for a domain-based security group, how we can assign those security groups is pick up that particular domain. What is particular domain? Obviously, the Learning Administrator, whatever we've assigned to this one, should be already existing, but we'll make sure this false itself is not enabled suspended. Sometimes when you firstly doing any kind of security setups, if policy is not enabled, you need to just make it enable a security policy that domain will be particularly enabled to use for any kind of usage. Before that, there is no security group assigned to know that was not enabled. Now we have enabled. What we'll do is, once we assign security group and make it as an activity, that will be automatically get enabled. What we'll do is, I didn't get that. There is nothing in when you go for implementation. If you say delivered a domain that are provided by Workday will not be assigned to any of the security group. And when it is not assigned to any of the security group, or when it is not enabled, even though you assign to any of the security group will not work, because that security policy itself is not enabled. What I've done is I've enabled it. Now I've enabled and I'm assigning Learning Administrator to that domain and will be activating. Once I activate that one, that policy will get enabled. Now see, this is a domain which we added to Learning Administrator. We are adding now. We're adding it now, but you selected control and you selected everything. That time it was not there. This was not enabled. The security policy was not enabled, and there is a reason why it was not part of the domains. That needs to be assigned to the user. Since this administrator campaign's security domain was not enabled, suspended. This reason why. What is the difference between domain and domain security policy? Both are same. Domain security policy is nothing but where you'll be assigning domains to the security groups. You will be giving the permissions to the security group, which will allow that security group to view something or to manage something or to modify something. That is domain security policy. Domain security policy domains will be part of the security business process. Security policy BPs will be part of the security. You will be providing BP business process security to the security group. For domains, you will be assigning domains to that security group. That is only, the single concept that can be constructed. Ideally, we created a security group, and for the security group, we added domains. Now we are coming to the domain and adding the security group. This is also one way that we can. Basically, support request you will be getting. You will be getting if you are learning administrator or if you are security administrator. Learning admin may come to you, hey, I'm not able to access campaigns for some reason. You know that was not assigned to my security group. What are you be doing? You'll be getting into that particular domain. You'll see list of the security groups that are assigned to the domain. You see HR, only HR administrator was there and learning administrator was not there. What you'll do then? You'll edit that particular domain and add the security group and then activate that one. That learning administrator will be provided with access to the campaign section. In that way, even in our domain, why domain level? You know you can get those security groups assigned, but ideally when you're implementing the learning then still stay. You'll be creating user-based security group and role-based security group and whatever domains that needs to be provided will be. You know as how I have done. I've been in Control E and I've selected that one. And the reason why this administrator campaign was not part of the list is this domain was not enabled. This was suspended. That was the reason why it was not part of the domains that was selected in the group. How do we know? How do we see that the domains that are not enabled are not enabled? We have basically when you're assigning domains is kind of manual way. You need to go into the domain and see the security group has to be assigned or not. When you are going in null, you'll be identifying whether or not the domain is enabled or not. If you go here, you can see here, it is now enabled. If you disable that one, that will get disabled. Whenever you're going to any of the domain, which are ideally if the model is implemented, you'll see that enabled. But when you're going for implementation, you need to enable all those administrator domains. You need to first enable all those things because first timing, you are assigning all the security to those domains. It is not used, those domains were not used. Ideally, when you're first time, implementing any module, that particular domains will not be assigned to any of the security groups. First, you'll be enabling those domains and then assign security groups to that one and make it available for usage. This domain I know was not enabled because I don't think this tenant was used by me in my previous learning trainings and also previous, people who are managing. They didn't use this domain, I believe. And there's a reason why this was not enabled. And now when I was doing, I got to know that this domain was not enabled and I have enabled it now and assigned learning administrator security group. And in order to become this as effective, what you need to do is you need to activate this one. Clear, makes sense. After enabling, you have to activate it again. Now, because you have assigned the learning administrator security group, there is no way to find out what all security groups are disabled. Sorry, not security group, domains are disabled. Manually, you have to find out whether you have to search and find out whether it's enabled or disabled. The threat appears only during implementation because when you're implementing what are the domains that are needed for you, you'll be enabling them and you'll be assigning security groups. But in future we came to know any of the new domains that you wanted to use, then it enabled them as well. If I want to find out all the domains, if you want to search all the domains in for learning, how do I do that? You need to go for domain:related learning or generally no Workday implementer or Workday people who are implemented will be getting a kind of checklist. who are implementing, they'll be getting a kind of checklist from Workday. These are all the domains that needs to be part of Workday kind of things, when implementer or when Workday is implementing for you. And if you're part of any kind of development team, they'll be giving you a kind of checklist, kind of spreadsheet. These are all the security groups. These are all the domains that are available in Workday which needs to be configured in your tenant. But there is no way that you can identify before implementation. You will be not able to know what are all the domains that are available because unless you have some kind of experience in implementing Workday, you will be not having control on the domains that needs to be granted for your tenant. After implementation, you need to create a customer report. If you wanted to know any kind of domains that are related to learning, you need to create the customer report in order to those things, or you need to go to the search bar domain learning. Everything will be appended by learning, is it? Go domains, is it? We will be getting all the list of learning related domains. Got it. All these tasks you need to get used to and get remember. There is no place where you can see all the tasks which are available. Tasks and reports, like everything is searchable. For a person who is new to Workday, there will be a kind of one sitemap here because this is the kind of implementer account or the sitemap is not there. But if you have your own Workday account, what you can do is you can go to your profile. If you go to your profile here, you will be seeing one item called sitemap. Sitemap. When you click on the sitemap, it will be taking you to the list of all the tasks that are. Where you can access those tasks, whether it is benefits, whether it is recruiting, learning, core, HCM, payroll, anything, all the modules, all the available modules. In Workday will be getting you the list of all the tasks to which you have access. If you click on benefits, if you filter with benefits, it will be getting a list of tasks where you have control to perform any access to that particular task. If you click on learning category, it will be getting a list of all learning tasks where you have access to those tasks. Like that, if you go to the sitemap, it will be getting you all the modules that are available in your Workday. And if you select any of the item, it will be providing a list of tasks to which you have access to. In that way, initially, if you're not aware of performing any tasks, or if you don't know what tasks that are available in Workday related to learning, the sitemap will help you. Go to the sitemap, select learning as a category, and it will get you a list of reports, a list of tasks that are available for you to access. If you have your own Workday account, just try that one and let me know if you're able to. If you have sitemap, you'll definitely. There is also a domain for that one, if that domain is accessed to any of the users. Got. If any of the domain will be assigned to landing page, sitemap is there. If this domain is assigned to any of the security group that is associated to you, you will be able to see that sitemap in this list. You will be getting sitemap here if the domain is, if you have You know in your own organization, if any security team is not assigned to you, you can ask them to get that sitemap and assign to the security that is associated to you, that you'll be seeing that sitemap here. And when you click on that sitemap, you'll be getting the list of tasks for that particular module which you wanted to access, which you're not aware. You'll be able to know what are the tasks that are available in Workday. That is about. Now we have seen campaigns. You know that we have assigned to learning administrator, and similarly, let's see domain learning access. This is one thing where you will be assigning a list of users, know whom you wanted to assign, provide learning access. Learning access in the sense in learning also will be an available work. Late is it. You can see here, this domain provide access to learning self-service tasks. Workers with access to this domain can search the learning catalog, view course information, set their learning preference, a complete learning service, and view their progress in programs, courses, and lessons. This is basically assigned for all the employees who wanted to be as a learner in your system to access any of the learning course, enroll to them, and view their transcript history. View learning catalog or the list of courses and all, to provide them access. You'll be granting those permissions to the particular security group here. Let's see. Go to that particular domain, edit security policy. Basically what you'll do is, since we have not manually assigned, because this was part of enable the domain automatically learning. Administrator got access to this one. And since this is self-service task, which every employee should be having access, what you'll be doing is, there is a security group called employee as self. Is a employee self-service. Yes. Employee self-service, employee as self-service, all employees also is there. If you select all employees, you'll be this learning access you'll be getting for all employees in the system. Or if you want to access, when you say modify, what will happen? They'll be able to edit the course content. If you don't want it to give any permissions to employees, to edit any kind of course. Basically will not give modified access to all employees. Only learning administrator will be having more face, but low for all employees. You'll be just giving you access to view anything related to anything. But modify means, let's say if they're going to any course and they'll be getting an option there. Edit this particular course. Will be not giving this one access to employees. Learning administrator will be having access. And in that way, for all the learning control, your learning access is a kind of domain which will be getting you permissions to all the self-service related tasks, to enroll, to view the course, to get into catalog, browse the learning content, and to view their transcript history. All these, self-owned tasks, you'll be getting access. And similarly, if you wanted to make contingent worker to be part of the learning application, and if you wanted to provide them access as well, you need to select. Contingent worker will not be a normal employee, but most of the organizations will provide a restriction to them to access their learning application, because they'll be kind of third-party resources where they do not come under compliance policy to go through the training items or learning items that are designed for employees. But in case If there is a policy that even contingent workers should take all the compliance courses that we are assigning, you can select this thing and probably there will be. Or if you don't want to provide them access to all the self-service tasks of learning, and probably if you wanted to create a separate application for them. You need to subscribe on learning application for them called Extended Enterprise Learning Module. Within Workday Learning, there is a separate module called Extended Enterprise Learning Module. That specific module is used for, mostly designed for a convenient workers, third-party agencies, and for the employees who does not have a Workday account to access the learning system. That module is designed when you're implementing Workday. If you wanted to go for Extended Enterprise Learning Module, you can subscribe for that and Workday will be enabling that module to you, and you can get all the contractors into that learning model that they'll be not having access to Workday. In this way, if you're doing how it will work, is they need to have a Workday account. All employees will obviously have a Workday account. They'll be having a Workday account, they'll be logging into Workday, and because of the permissions that you're giving to learning access here, they'll be able to access anything related to learning and for contingent workers. Some organizations, will be creating a contingent worker account to them, and if they're hired to create only reports, they'll provide access to only reports. They'll not provide any permissions to view any other employee profile or to view their compensation to view other employee compensation. All these things. For contractors, access will be restricted to only their job area wherever they're responsible to work. Only to that particular piece of work will be assigning a security. But in case if your organization is requiring contingent workers should also undergo any kind of compliance training internally, what you'll be doing is you'll be subscribing for External Enterprise Learning Module, Extended Enterprise Learning. The name itself says Extended Enterprise Learning Model. You'll be extending learning application to employees who are not part of to contingent workers who are not part of in Workday. You'll be dumping all those contingent workers into that Extended Enterprise Learning Model. They'll be having only access to learning model. They'll be not having access to any other piece of task in Workday. They'll just log into that Extended Enterprise Learning Workday application. If you view the course, take the course and complete the course. That's it. They can perform anything related to learning, but not, other items that are not related to learning. In that way, there's a module called Extended Enterprise Learning, which you can subscribe. But this is also one way what I'm doing you can give. If there is a policy that you can have even contingent workers to take training, you'll make them as a kind of, security group under learning access. And once you click on and activate this contingent, workers and employees should be able to perform any self-service related task to learning. Now we've added those two security groups. What is the activity that we need to do? We need to activate them. Whatever security changes that you're making, make sure that all the activation you need to perform. I have a couple of questions on this. Now you told workers or normal employees who have Workday account and contractors or someone who will normally not have a Workday account. Will have Workday account but will be restricted with the specific access. Like they'll not have all employee related. If you're an employee, you'll be having all your different permissions ready. You have permissions to go to the company of compensation and view your compensation. That is permission. That is permission. What do you mean by Workday account and not having Workday account? Without having Workday account, they will not be able to log in. Only, basically, if you're an employee, when a company is making you offer, when company is offering you that your employee will get generated. Your employee will get generated, and the moment offer a release to you, you'll be getting a kind of URLs to you to perform onboarding activities and all. They'll be sending you an URL and will be asking you to enter your communication address, your email, all those things you'll be ordering it before when they're hiring you. It's your employee is generated and you're an employee of that Workday account. But when you're hiring a conditional worker, employee will not be generating. Onboarding process will not start. They'll manually create a conditional worker account after you perform any kind of discussions and all when you're hiring a conditional worker. When conditional worker inside the organization, will manually create a worker account and give specific permissions to that one. When conditional worker is in Workday, what we'll be doing is we'll be giving access to that particular piece of domain which the conditional worker is responsible for doing any activities that you will be doing when you hire a conditional worker. But that is not the case with the employee. Employee will be having a lot of the things that they need to go in Workday. They need to, they'll be having a kind of job requisition. Job requisition is nothing but for the position the job requisition is assigned. If you're hiring to any of the positions, you're qualified for that position. That position is created for you. When that position is created for you and job requisition will be assigned to that position. Job requisition is assigned, job profile will be there. A lot of things are there for an employee. Job profile, if you're hiring as a Workday developer position has to be created. When Workday developer position has to be created, job profile, Workday developer job profile has to be created. All these things will be linked to employee if you want it. If you're becoming an employee, all these things have to be performed. You need to have a position within the system before they hire you. If they wanted to create a position, there needs to be a profile that needs to be saying, these are all the job responsibilities that this position will be performing. And when job profile is creating you, what kind of salary that needs to be assigned to the job profile. Based on that position, salary will be, compensation will be assigned. All these things will be there for an employee, but for a contingent worker that will be in all these cases will not be applicable. They'll just create a contingent worker ID and have them in the system. Give the specific security group. That's it. Or the compensation. Anything will be taken outside of Workday. Ideally, the way they are going to be created will be different. That's all. But we'll have the Workday access. Now we'll be having access, but permissions will be different. Permissions will be different. Now what is the you mean? Is there any cost difference of a normal Workday account, employee Workday account and extended enterprise license if customer has to take as you said? Is there a cost difference there? Because they don't have to take extended enterprise. This one only. They can only use the normal user license. What they have? They can go. They can create the employees, the users as contingent workers and they can restrict their access. What is the difference? They can do. If you're, I'll tell you my experience and what I've done. I've implemented a learning model for one of the large Workday customer. What they're doing is, when I was implementing Workday to them, they were, available live with Workday only for United States. Only for United States. They're using Workday, but they have their presence globally. Their company is operating in Canada. Their company is operating in London, Mexico, India, Australia. To all these countries, their company is operating, but they're using Workday as their HR system only for US employees, but not for all other countries. When they plan to implement the Workday learning, What they have decided is yes for all US employees. Since we have a Workday Live with all US employees, we'll be implementing Workday Learning. Obviously, when Workday Learning implemented, all employees will be part of Workday Learning activities. That's a kind of default. When all the US employees, when all the contingent workers who are part of United States. There you need to decide whether contingent worker who is in the US should be part of our Workday system as a contingent worker. That is one thing, one question tag you'll be getting. Now another question. We are live with the United States and we are implementing Workday Learning in the United States. But we have all of our employees globally. How we can assign our learning catalogs, our learning courses to all these employees who are not part of Workday system. Now there comes in a module called Extended Enterprise Learning Module. Employees who are not part of Workday system can be get into Workday Learning as an extended enterprise learner. You'll be subscribing for that module called Extended Enterprise Learning Module, and the Workday will be, charging separate cost for that one. And once you enable that one, all UK, Canada, Australia, India, Mexico, Workday is not live, but just you wanted to get these employees to only perform learning related tasks. You will be getting the Extended Enterprise Learning Module and dump all other country employees into Extended Enterprise. And single task, what a learning administrator will be doing when they're enabling or releasing a campaign. What they'll be doing? They'll be just doing one task for employees, one campaign for these, extended enterprise learners that they can, distribute one compliance course to all the country globally. They can access, they can track the completion status, they can view, if there are any kind of course issues, and all they can view for on behalf of extended enterprise learner. All these things, then they can be done. In that scenario, once you have your extended enterprise learning module, the contingent workers who are in US, that thing also will come here, since we are using extended enterprise learning for all the third-party resources. Instead of getting the access for contingent workers in the Workday system, let's get them into extended enterprise learning module that will anyways. Extended enterprise learning will go off. Then all international employees who are not in Workday will become employees in the Workday. During that time, we'll release these contingent workers. In that scenario, company will be deciding to get into extended enterprise learning module and dump all extended resources into Workday Learning. In a similar way, they can push contingent workers also in that extended enterprise learning module that they can track all the completions. Extended Enterprise Learning Module will enable extended employees who are part of the organization but not in Workday. Will allow them to get into Workday only for learning. Extended Enterprise Learning will not provide any other access, will provide only access to learning. Even they search anything in the search bar, nothing will come for them, at least for an employee. Based on the security design for an employee, anything will come here, but for extended enterprise learner, only learning will come in the search bar, but nothing can be searched. And I believe the cost wise also normal worker license and extended enterprise license will be a little bit lesser than normal worker license. Yes, definitely. Is outside of Workday subscription. And it is not kind of subscription which provide access to wide range of domains in Workday. It is just for learning. Just for learning domain, just for learning security group. Only that piece will work and it will be not. Cost as similar to as how Workday tenant will be costing or Workday environment will be costing. It is just a kind of one module enabling that particular. Just hardly I can say 10% or will be a kind of additional cost to what you're implementing on learning. You mean 10% of abnormal. This licensing is as per user. Is it user count? Workday will not provide to every customer who asks for extended enterprise. They'll be defining this subscription based on the headcount. The customer for whom I've implemented the cost of extended employees was around, 3,000, more than 3,000. That was the reason why, Workday has given a kind of subscription to that customer. But if you're having 10 members in India, there are 5 members in Australia, 2 members in Canada. For such kind of scenario, Workday will not be granting this extended enterprise model. We have to use the license and we have to buy for get by permissions. You have them as a contingent worker. In that scenario, you need to be fine. When you have such kind of $5 per user, not like that. It is like a bulk amount which Workday will fix based on the head count. Only if it is bulk, not for below 100 or below 1000 kind of. They have some kind of restriction. They will be going with subscription based on that head count. Because in SuccessFactors it was per user kind of a subscription. If you have 5000 employees per user, it will be like this. And if it is 1 lakh, it will be like that. It will. Per user it is $5 or something like some around that figure for a license. Here it will be a little bit different, I believe, than different. In that scenario, when you have your contingent workers in your Workday system as a contingent worker, you need to define a separate security group for them. You need to define some rules to them that contingent workers should not be able to access any other domains in Workday. And also, whatever learning that finishes should provide access to them. They should be able to access only that particular course. They will be restricted to go to any of the, employee related courses. Employee will be offered some specific courses to, excel their skill set and all, but contingent workers should not be provided to that access. To get into any course that is available in Workday, take that particular course. That kind of restriction also should be there. And when you have contingent workers inbuilt within the Workday system, there are some certain security setups that you need to make where you'll be restricting contingent workers to access learning catalog. You'll be defining a security group. I know they'll be creating, some roles in security group. There are different ways security group will be considering. There is a security group called intersection security group. For that learning access, let me see. Ideally in security group, you can, assign domains. That means user will be able to search for courses, but what courses he can search, that restriction. That courses will be based on topics but who have domain level only will restrict the contingent workers to access that piece of area. Let's say if I select the intersection security group, I'm just renaming, randomly. Here you have a kind of what security that you wanted to include. All employee. All employee. What security we wanted to exclude? We'll be doing all contingent workers. Now operate the current organization. Now, if you now one security group we've created. I need to give any of the automation here. The home and the employees part of. Now you have created the security group where now you have included all employees. You've excluded contingent workers. Now go to any of the domain. Now, if you take any of the domain and if you assign this security group to any of the domain, what it will work? Based on the setup that you have made here to that particular domain, all employees will be included. And to the same domain, all contingent workers will be excluded. The security group will exclude accessing contingent workers to that particular domain. Employees will be part of the entire domain. Let's say if you wanted to take example as campaigns, campaign security group campaign domain is there. Now, if you take the security group and go for campaign, and if you assign this security group to the campaign, what will happen based on this security setup? Security groups will include all employees will become a kind of permissions, will get permissions to access campaigns, and contingent workers will be excluded to access campaigns because you are excluding from their domain. That's what you're saying with intersection. What about this? Browse learning content. That is a domain. Is that a domain? No, browse learning content is not a domain. That is a kind of self-service task, self-service learning related task. Learning access is a kind of domain that will get you access to access a browser learning content item. If I want to include only employees for browse learning content for some courses, and I want to exclude contingent workers for browse learning content for some courses. In that scenario, you will not be able to restrict them to access browser learning content because that is a domain that comes for learning access. You need to provide the learning access that they can be able to access the browser learning content. And when they search for courses, only to the courses that they're allowed. Only those courses will come, but rest of the courses should not come. What you'll do in that scenario is you'll go at topic level. At topic level, you'll be providing a kind of restriction, basically. There will be a kind of standard report called browse learning content, which is a kind of search report. I can say That report will be getting all the list of courses available in tenant. And at that report level, you'll be filtering that report to filter courses based on the topic. No, I'm finding that particular report. If this tenant is having that, I should be able to show you how we can do that one. This domain is not yet configured with any of the things. That is the reason why we are not able to access anything, not domains or a dashboard. This one is a dashboard. You're saying browser learning, not learning. Learning is a kind of dashboard in which you'll be having browser learning. All items you'll be adding here, and employee will be able to access all those activities here. You'll be having based on employee, access will be giving all these items to the learning. Also see if there is any report created for learning. Browse learning content. Here you have browse, you have see here. Based on this access dashboard, access employee will be able to get into browse and they will be able to browse this particular learning course. These are all the browser learning. All these are the things which are available for an employee. This dashboard is not configured. That's the reason why you're not able to see this one. Now I'll be just creating this one and will be assigning to learning that. Administrator will show you how it works. Worklet we don't have to configure. We'll just not configure this one. We'll just have learning. Go to home. Learning is also in dashboard, is it? And learning is a kind of within home dashboard. You can configure any other dashboards if you want it to populate on the home page. Now generally employees will be part of learning. Learning administrator will not be part because employee will be able to access their cell phone or task. And even contingent workers if I want to. If you want, you can add that contingent workers will be getting access to learning. But again, this will give access to both of them to have access to browse learning catalog. Browse learning that I said. Now browse learning is a kind of report that we have at report level. You can play around to restrict which topic should be handled by employee, which topic should be, accessed by contingent worker. All those things they can control in the report that when employee gets into browse learning there, they'll be having a kind of control. If contingent worker will be getting access to all the topics that are provided, but for an employee, they can access as per the security, whatever they have that they'll be having. This learning is not configured to any of the from domain level. We need to get in the scenario. You can play around with all those things at report level. You can control. Basically, dashboard setups will be coming based on the profile you know that will be. You will be getting a list of from business that this is the employee group who should be having access to this worklet. And this is the employee group who should not have access to worklet kind of requirement you'll be during implementation. During that implementation stage, you'll be setting up. If there are certain domains that will be giving access to that learning dashboard, that automatically, when you're assigning to the self-service task in the dashboard, automatic the security will be coming into the picture. Self-service learning. This domain provide access to the worker to view their transcript, not this one. There should be some other thing as will be getting access to learning dashboard. Setup learning. This is also one learning catalog, which will provide access to your system. This is one thing. Basically, this domain will allow her to access. This policy is not enabled. You need to take care of that thing. I don't think this tenant was used to provide learning training earlier. There is nothing is configured here. And that's good. We're not doing everything. The first we have to enable the status is still suspended, policy not enabled. Once you add any kind of security group and activate that one, you will be able to see that the status is enabled. How to activate this thing? Now, if I access domain setup learning, react to it now. The domain is enabled. You're not seeing any restrictions here. See, it's got activated. The moment you picked that one earlier, you're seeing the domain was not enabled. Now you see that was. Setup learning is what exactly does it do? Yes, this is domain. This admin provides access to administrator to manage security to learning catalog. This is for admin. This is something you know for where learning administrator can access. See, even after changing, it still says status suspended. No. This is not the domain which we activated. Or else we wouldn't have seen that one. This is not the domain. This is the domain which we have seen. Similarly, we have to enable learning catalog. Yes, whatever you know you need to see, based on that, what you have done, it is got enabled. Whatever you know, the list of domains you pick when you're implementing, obviously to any of the domain, you need to assign the security. No, when you're assigning the security, at the initial stage of assigning the security, what you need to do you'll make that the domain has enabled. You'll assign that domain as a particular list in the domain list of no work learning. You'll mark that domain as a kind of enabled domain and then add any of the security groups that you wanted to get into that particular domain. Then activate that one. After you activate that one, you'll start using that particular domain to the security groups that you assign. And from there, security permissions become effective. From there, your employees or any kind of administrators or any kind of users will be getting permissions as per the security domain access that you've provided. At the initial stage of implementation, obviously you need to. You'll be provided with a list of domains which you need to provide or start allocating to those security groups and start accessing those particular domain areas. There you'll be enabling those modules first when you're implementing. But since this tenant, I think learning is the first kind of setup that we are making, I believe. And that's the reason why none of the models are getting enabled. We are making them enabled and we are starting to assign these particular security groups. And that's the reason why you're seeing. The process is, if those are not enabled, you'll be not able to view them. Those domain areas will not be accessible. You need to mark them as enabled, assign the security group, activate them and start using them. That's it. Now let me, kind of assess you, based on the domains and security, how we have discussed now. Let's say, if you're implementing any Workday learning model, or if you're supporting as a kind of, super user for Workday learning. If there is any security issue, if employee comes and reaches out to you, I'm not able to view my transcript. I know for some reason I'm not able to download my transcript or view my transcripts. What you'll do? First, we will search as to which security group he belongs to. Yes, exactly. And we have to view the security group and see what all domains that security group has access to. First, other ways, see the go to that particular learning setup or learning access domain and see whether security that employees associate is part of this domain or not. And that way, we can identify and, grant that domain access. If that particular domain is not associated with the user, that employee is associated. What is the task for that? No, go to that particular domain only. Let's say now I told you learning access, no. Learning. self-service learning task is there. The domain provides access to the worker to view their learning transcript. You need to go to this learning domain and see whether the security group that employee is associated with is part of this domain or not. Find out what security group the employee is with. What's the security that employee is associated with? We need to know. And obviously, since this view learning transcript is a kind of self-service task which every employee should have access. You need to see whether that employee as the security group is added to this list or not. In that way, you'll be able to identify. Let's say if condition worker comes to you and asks you, I'm not able to view complete learning. I'm not able to access learning if condition worker comes to your last. You need to go to learning, access to mine. Learning access to mine and see whether condition worker is enabled for that one or not. You go to this learning access. What is access to learning self-service task? Complete learning. This is the manual. We'll be going here and you'll be seeing whether condition workers is added to the list or not. That's it. Here it will be identified. And if it's not, you'll add Canadian workers and make sure that learners will be able to access a learning application. Contingent workers will be able to access learning. But if you wanted to restrict condition workers in accessing the specific courses, and only employees should be able to access only specific courses, that you can manage the topics which we'll be seeing in our upcoming sessions. At the top of our topic level, how you can restrict security and all will be seeing in our upcoming sessions. Please do like, share and subscribe to our channel.